We're ready to go.
Did she say recording?
Yes.
Good evening. It is Wednesday, November the 1st, 2023, and welcome to the regular City Commission meeting here in the Public Safety Building. So we have several items on our agenda. We will begin with the convening of the meeting and roll call.
Commissioner Frank O'Donnell.
Here.
Commissioner Rocky Smith.
Here.
Commissioner Mike Mitchell.
Here.
Commissioner Adam Morrow.
Here.
And Mayor Denise McGriff.
Here. Would you please join me in the flag salute? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. We have two proclamations this evening, and the first one is a proclamation for fallen police officer Robert Libke and Officer George J. Hanlon. To recognize and to honor the service and sacrifice of those law enforcement officers killed in the line of duty or protecting the Oregon City community. Whereas law enforcement is an honorable, hardworking profession that diligently seeks to make our community more livable and safe, and whereas there is no greater sacrifice an officer can make for their community than to give up their life, and whereas the death of a police officer shocks the very soul of our community and our government, and the very freedoms of the officers have sworn to protect, and whereas the impact of this tragedy upon the officer's family, friends, department, and community is immeasurable, and whereas our hearts and thoughts go out to the many killed in action while serving to protect our community. Now, therefore, I, Denise C. McGriff, Mayor of the City of Oregon City, along with the City Commission and the citizens of Oregon City, extend heartfelt condolences to the families of the following officers. Reserve Police Officer Robert Libke, lost on November 3rd, 2013. Police Officer George J. Hanlon, lost on April 23rd, 1906. These officers have been lost but will never be forgotten. This community will forever be grateful. We ask for a moment of silence as we remember Oregon City's valuable public servants and pray for healing and hope in the future. I will be signing this proclamation today, November 1st, 2023. So let's have a moment of silence. Thank you very much. Chief Davis, did you want to add anything?
I just add that on Friday, November 3rd, is the 10-year anniversary of Officer Libke getting shot. He died on November 4th, 2013. We're holding a public ceremony here at the police department at noon on Friday, November 3rd. So anyone that's willing or wanting to come is welcome.
Thank you so much. Our second proclamation is proclaiming November 1st, 2023 as Extra Mile Day. Whereas Oregon City, Oregon is a community which acknowledges a special vibrancy that exists within the entire community when its individual citizens collectively go the extra mile in personal effort, volunteerism, and service. And whereas Oregon City, Oregon is a community which encourages the citizens to maximize their personal contributions to the community by giving of themselves wholeheartedly and with total effort, commitment, and conviction to their individual ambitions, family, friends, and community. And whereas Oregon City, Oregon is a community which chooses to shine a light on and celebrate individuals and organizations within its community who go the extra mile in order to make a difference and lift up fellow members of their community. And whereas Oregon City, Oregon acknowledges that the mission of the Extra Mile America to create 550 extra mile cities in America is proud, and we are happy to support Extra Mile Day, November 1st, 2023. Now, therefore, I, Denise C. McGriff, Mayor of the City of Oregon City, do proclaim November 1st, 2023 as Extra Mile Day and encourage Oregon City citizens to take time on this day, not only to go the extra mile in their own lives, but also to acknowledge all of those who are inspirational in their efforts and commitment to make their organizations, families, community, and country, and the world a better place. I will be signing this today on November 1st, 2023. I would like to add to this, so there were some individuals, I've had the pleasure as mayor of selecting some individuals and organizations that have made a positive impact on our community over this last year and many years in addition to that, and continue to support our city by giving their time, talents, and efforts. I'm delighted to honor them and their respective organizations on Extra Mile Day. I'd first like to recognize the Oregon City Parks Foundation, and that would be Roger and Christina Fowler-Theus. I know they're in the process of moving, so they might not be online today. But the foundation was founded in 2015 by a dedicated group of volunteers inspired to advocate for Oregon City's parks, trails, historic and cultural heritage, and recreation sites. Roger and Christina have been the heart and soul of the Oregon City Parks Foundation for over the past 8 years, where they have guided activities such as ivy pools at Waterboard Park, or the latest was just creating a pollinator garden on the promenade. The Oregon City Parks Foundation bottle drop efforts, led by Roger, have helped fund these activities and initiatives. Roger and Christina have been tireless in their efforts to support Oregon City Parks and our historic sites. Next, I'd like to honor Trieste Andrews. She has been a tireless advocate in the intersection of arts and community engagement. She has partnered with multiple organizations in Oregon City for community art projects, including, and not least, the Oregon City Arch Bridge Celebration, which was absolutely amazing. She was also the president, first chair of our Oregon City Arts Commission. And she has done so much to build bridges between arts and other activities here in Oregon City, and there'll be more in our trail news about Trieste. I'll have you stand at the end. Tori Blackwell. Tori lives, works, and is an active member of the Oregon City community. He's filled various roles in the community as a youth coach, school volunteer, student mentor, school board member for the Springwater Environmental Sciences School. He's currently the chair of the Leaders of Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Council, LEDIC, to advise Clackamas County Commissioners around equity-related issues. Tori has assisted the City of Oregon City in planning our 4 Juneteenth celebrations and the Summer Connections events at Clackamas Community College. He can be seen at neighborhood association meetings, local celebrations, volunteer opportunities, and no matter what, Tori is always ready to step up and help out. I'm also recognizing Heidi Blackwell individually. Heidi is very passionate about creating opportunities where young people feel a sense of belonging, connectedness, and purpose. Heidi is involved in a lot of things, I think even more than me. And she is also including No Place for Hate, Soul Flags Community Arts Center, Unite Oregon City, ICU, Creating Connections for Kids of Color, and the Mary Rose Foundation, and she's an Oregon City High School parent volunteer. She's also on the library board, and she's also on the Oregon City School Board at this time. Oregon City is very fortunate to have Heidi, Tori, Roger, Christina, and Trieste volunteering their time and services, and they've made many long-lasting positive impacts on the city. And I'd like to ask Trieste and Heidi to stand. Thank you. And I'll have a copy of the proclamation for you after I sign it, and I'll get those to you. But anyway, thank you for everything, and we so appreciate you and all of your efforts. And your nominations have gone into the Extra Mile Foundation, so there'll be something online as I understand it, so that's why I had to get the picture of you guys. So thank you so much. We really appreciate it. Commissioners want to... So commissioners, you want to add anything? Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
We appreciate you. And thank you to Colin and to Gavin for basically giving up their parents, because their parents do a lot. And I know you guys are both with them, so I intend to see one of you or both of you up here at some point in time for an Extra Mile Award sometime in the future. So, thank you. All right, we are back to our regular part of our agenda, although this was a great part. So we have an update from our very fabulous Metro Counselor from District Number 2, which I think is the best district. Thank you so much for coming and welcome.
Thank you so much.
Oh, wait, before you get started, I forgot. Is there anybody here that wants citizen comments before I go to the presentations? Okay.
Thank you so much, Mayor. and Commissioners, it's great to be back. I was with you about a year ago. I think it was October, not November, but really good to be with you in your chambers. I agree with you, District 2 is the best district. I am here just to give you a little update on what I'm working on, issues that are coming up, and ways that I think we can collaborate and make sure to be in good communication. I think it's really valuable to spend time face-to-face in this format, as well as in all of the committees that I see so many of you in. So my first update is on garbage and recycling. Our work on RID Patrol to pick up illegal dumps on the side of the road. We've had quite a bit of success. We have picked up 880 tons of garbage just this past year, and we've really focused on getting our response time down. During the height of the pandemic, we were measuring in weeks, sometimes up to a month, and now we're averaging 1 to 2 days for pickup between when it's reported and when it's actually picked up. So any member of the public seeing anything dumped illegally, whether it's a pile of trash, whether it's a couch that maybe was one person's trash and maybe supposed to be somebody else's treasure, but it's not, you can just go to ridpatrol.oregonmetro.gov, fill out a form. I believe it's 4 steps. I've done it myself. It takes a minute. So I would encourage folks to just spread the word. Our community can look as clean as can be if folks continue to invest a couple minutes in reporting, and RID will be there to pick up. I was really happy to help cut a ribbon yesterday of our new headquarters for RID. Traditionally, we had been working with inmates out of Multnomah County, and we lost access to their labor during the pandemic. That made us really revamp all of our systems. So we now have 6 different crews that we hire directly or work with workforce partnerships in order to have them. So we had to get new space and a new warehouse for our RID work. And that's in central southeast Portland, and they can launch and be in all corners of the region pretty quickly. The other thing happening in garbage and recycling is we're going to contemplate rate transparency for tipping fees across the region. Obviously, Metro operates south and central and sets our own rates, but then there are also the private facilities, and we are interested in making sure that the private facilities have rate transparency, since those rates do factor into the haulers' rates that we all pay through the franchises. Next, our urban growth management is coming up upon us, and is our role every 6 years to do an urban growth report to ensure that we have enough land for 20 years of growth, supporting economic development, both housing and job lands. We have launched a stakeholder round table, and that has met twice. That stakeholder group is advising us not only on methods, but also on the buildable land inventory that's required for us to begin to contemplate what land might be brought in. Continuing this winter, we're also launching a youth cohort to advise us. I've asked staff to reach out to all of my cities that have active youth commissions and invite members of youth commissions to participate in our youth summit. It is only logical that the youngest folks in our community will help plan for our long-term future. We will also work this winter for city and county processes to begin to review preliminary buildable land inventory results at the urban edge. Then next spring, our city proposals will be due so that potential urban growth boundary expansion areas will be identified by cities who would like to submit proposals. And then in summer, we will issue our draft urban growth report that takes into account the factors required under state statute, like regional population, household and employment numbers, forecasts, and growth. Then once that urban growth report is published, we'll have a formal public comment period before it's adopted in order to inform our city expansion proposals. So it's all moving, and the stakeholder table, again, has had 2 meetings and will meet again in another 2 weeks. And I think it's a really good group, but a little bit underrepresentative of Clackamas County. So I've been trying to extend invitations to more folks to participate from Clackamas. Then I want to give an update on housing. Next Monday, I will be on site in Happy Valley as the ribbon is cut and folks begin to move in to the Good Shepherd Village. That will represent our 1,000th unit of affordable housing. That's housing that we're building out after the 2018 bond that's affordable to folks and our neighbors who need the help the most, the 0 to 30 and 30 to 60% MFI units. Metro's commitment to voters in 2018 was that we would build housing that would serve over 12,000 people, and it would be over 4,000 apartments due to both a good bond market when we sold the bonds and also good efficiencies working with our local housing authorities. We're going to exceed that, probably 4,700-ish units, and probably around 14,000 people will be served through the bond program. So really proud of the work that's happening in Clackamas County. As you can see from this map, there are projects in every corner of the region, including here in Oregon City. The way to read this map is that the green dots are projects that have already opened, dark blue dots are under construction, and the light blue dots are in permitting and design. So the bond funds are active. Almost all of them are attached to projects. There's not available funds left at most of the 7 housing authorities. And as you see there, the Hacienda project is well underway here in Oregon City. The other side of our housing work at Metro is working on our supportive housing services implementation. That measure passed in 2020. And so we are working hard to make sure that the program meets the needs of our communities. Hundreds of people have been placed in housing, and we've worked to expand shelter beds. 140 new shelter beds just here in Clackamas County. I should say new or maintained that would have lost their funding otherwise. And across the region, we've increased the shelter beds by over 1,000. In Clackamas County, 840 people have been placed into permanent housing, and 643 people have been prevented from eviction. Overall, region-wide, we've helped nearly 5,000 people into housing, and as I said, 1,400 shelter beds region-wide. But we know there's more work to do, and the progress is never fast enough. So that's why we're working extra hard, not only with the 3 counties to implement their program. Their programs use the local implementation plan as their Northern Star, but we're also working with the Tri-County Planning Body, in particular on a couple of planks, one of which is workforce development and wages within the service worker industry. One is making sure that we're getting ready for the Medicaid waiver expansion that Oregon has so we can make best use of those funds. Also, we have a item to make sure that we're doing regional coordination of landlord recruitment so that we're not only relying on our public housing development, but we're working with private landlords, particularly with the vouchers. So a lot of work is happening there at the regional level, and we're doing regional data analysis. Finally, the opportunity to be in front of you couldn't be better timed. We have basically 1 month before our region will be adopting the Regional Transportation Plan update. Our RTP is the opportunity to both set policies and develop a project list so that we've identified a transportation system that will cut down on congestion, improve safety, and supports clean air and reduces climate emissions. The RTP is a blueprint and a project menu so that we know how to guide our investments going forward and so that we're drawing down as much federal support as possible. Our scheduled RTP process includes JPAC this month as well as Metro Council, and the opportunity to voice any last minute changes is probably tonight We have both the policy sections and the project lists, I think, have been pretty thoroughly vetted, but happy to have a conversation, particularly as it relates to the conversations we're having standing up to ODOT's tolling programs. After all that heavy stuff, I just wanted to highlight the work that I get to do at the zoo. The zoo is the top visitor attraction in the state that sells tickets, so the top ticketed attraction. And it's something that Metro can be really proud of. Lots of people from across the region are members and take their kids there. It also attracts visitors from across the West. We have really done a good job of implementing the last bond that passed in 2008. And 40% of the zoo has been updated. That said, we're in the process of approving a new master plan for capital improvements that would look at the other half of the zoo to make sure that we're meeting current AZA standards and continuing to be a welcoming place for visitors. And then the last project, really far away from Oregon City, but I spend a lot of time on it because the opportunity to create a new visitor opportunity for the region has presented itself. Expo Center has on occasion hosted sports. We sometimes host volleyball and other kind of recreational and youth sports. We're looking at a feasibility study to invest more heavily at the site in sports facilities, not for professional, but for club, for youth, so that we can continue to attract the economic development that is the regional tourism, but more unique sports attractions to the site. Maybe a covered track, things that the community can really use. So that's an excellent opportunity to hear from community about what their hopes and dreams would be. So just wanted to bring it up tonight for the public who are viewing. And with that, I'm always reachable, and my contact information there, but I would love to hear questions, concerns, or ways that we can better work together.
Gentlemen, go right ahead.
A while back, there was a fair amount of discussion about relocation of all or part of the South Metro Transfer Station, and that seems to have that discussion kind of died down. Is that still under consideration?
So we had an option on the Jennifer Street property, and we walked away from that option. That said, walking away from the property hasn't stopped our discussions about what investments are going to be necessary, either off-site for new facility space or on-site. It's an aging facility, and it's outgrown its ability to be productive in its current format. We have a facilities study that is looking at facilities overall, not just at how Metro South runs. That needs to run its course before we do anything more specific on planning for future investments on Metro South. One of the things that it's contemplating is, do we want to continue to invest in large facilities, or would we be more inclined to invest in a depot style of facilities across the region? And I think in either case, if we continue to invest in large facilities or in depot, we would see new investment in Metro South.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councilor Lewis, for being here. I appreciate the update. On the topic of Metro South, the Metro Auditor recently released a pretty scathing audit on the Metro South transfer station, exposing some pretty serious concerns for safety in our own community. And so I'm wondering what's being done at the council level to respond to those concerns.
Sure, thank you. And I do think that the audit was a fair and good audit. I also think that the management response actually shows that some of the things that have been identified, council had been on top of. Most of concern for me are the safety issues of our workers, the safety of our community. I'm as afraid of bloodborne pathogens and some of those other issues identified as the radioactivity that actually cause a little bit more headline in the press. The opportunity to get ahead of what the auditor identified with the aging computer system, we've invested in that in 2 previous budgets. So I do think that council's taking action, but it's slow work. taking a 1970s or 1980s computer program and transferring it over to something modern.
Thank you.
Greg?
Well, it sounds like we're years away from a possible new facility, given the timetable you just quoted. And I toured that years ago, and there was definitely improvements to be made even then. And efficiencies and flow and integrate some modern techniques. So hopefully those things are happening. And of course, as you said, safety is paramount, so we'll go with that.
Thank you, Commissioner. And we have made some improvements. In particular, about a year ago, we got a new system that's a fire suppression system. So some investments to the site are working directly on the safety concerns.
Yeah, at the time, I thought the flow of work through there could be rethought, but again, I'm not managing that. It's just an observation from my career in business.
Yeah, thank you.
Rocky? Well, obviously I have some concerns about Metro South, but from the standpoint of, I was on the committee that recommended to the council that we look at Jennifer Street. And, I'm sorry that didn't work out because there was a whole lot of work that went into that. But I think the ideas that came out of that process with regard to a smaller facility and splitting it up is something that I know that the council is still looking at. And I think as the facilities plan gets completed, I think that would be a really optimal way to go. I mean, I have noticed over the last probably 10 years that the traffic at Metro South has definitely increased. And I know that the information that we received shows that to be true. So lot more people are using it. And I think it would help if we were able to get the commercial traffic out of there and move that to a different location. Plus, I know there were many community members who talk about the couch that gets left out that's not somebody's treasure. There was a whole process about how we could use reusing materials, materials for sale, that sort of thing. So I think all of those are still on the table, and I'm really glad to see that. I think, as you know, where Oregon City sits, as you've been very involved in our regional transportation, and Commissioner Morrow sits on our C4 committee. And I know that at the Metropolitan Mayors Consortium, we have two members of JPAC who sit on that, Mayor Callaway and Mayor Stovall. And they both are very adamant about their desire to pull in federal money. And we had to remind Mayor Stovall at that meeting that although he might not his city might not seem to be affected by 205, he is affected by 205. We also had the same conversation with Mayor Callaway. So I'm hoping, the last that I saw of that document, basically, I'm still hoping that that a project for the third lane that is desperately needed on 205 is still in there, although I would love to see the idea of tolling not be put in there, but I don't know how well that's going to go over. So that's the other thing. In terms of the youth summit, we probably want to do our best to try to get our folks here, and Commissioner Morrow has been leading the charge on our youth advisory committee. We recently had our very first project that they completed, which was a mental health fair, and it was very well received. We've already had requests, to do it again. So, we know what we know now, and we'll proceed to get there. So when did you say that might be?
I don't have a date.
They don't have a date yet?
No.
Okay, well, we'll let our folks know. We have a meeting coming up, I think, on the 13th of November. We can make.
I will at least have a month identified for you by then.
Yeah, so we can let them know, at least to keep that on their radar. They're all busier than all get out, as you can well imagine, with school, jobs, and everything else activities that they're doing. Did you want to add one more thing?
Yes, I also just wanted to thank you for bringing it to my attention earlier about the fact that the county, and this is something that I did share with my fellow commissioners, I had the city manager forward an email.
That's the last thing on my list.
But for the public, I think they also deserve to know that the county has approached Metro in seeing if the SHS funds can apply to the proposed navigation center on Main Street, and none of us were told about that. I had to hear about it from you, and I greatly appreciate that you told me that, because I have heard nothing about that. And regardless of where any of us behind this dais stand on whether that's the appropriate location, we at least deserve to have known about it so that we could have made public comment on it. For those of us who were watching what happened with the Happy Valley Project turnkey situation, the county commissioners made it into a big circus, and people were able to attend and make their voices heard about that particular topic. And that same right was not afforded to the people living in this community, which is shameful. I did get confirmation from Commissioner Savas that they did approve $10 million, I believe, in funding for that. And in the conversation that you and I had, I appreciated that you recognized that Oregon City cannot be the hub for all of these services. Obviously, being the county seat, it's where a lot of the infrastructure already is. But one of the great things about this bond is the opportunity to make those investments elsewhere, so that it's not just being solely borne by the residents and businesses of Oregon City. So I would like to, again, thank you, but also, do you know if it's a possibility for city services to be reimbursed through the SHS program? Because if that's the case, I would like our staff to look into getting our services that we already provide due to inaction taken at other levels to get those services reimbursed by SHS.
Certain services, if they are able to account for the population, fitting the population that is defined in the measure, can be in coordination. You would go directly to the county. And I do believe that the county, I can't speak for the county, I think they think that there's a policy and process of how they're gonna be able to work with the cities and the city-provided services. And honestly, I've had colleagues in Washington County ask my staff who does it the best, and nobody's doing it the best right now. So that might be something I say we need to develop a regional standard for how the counties work with their cities.
Well, it was also the last thing on my list, and again, I thank you as well for making us aware of this. Chair Smith mentioned something to me that their staff was working on something, and I was very clear in my comment to her was that her staff needed to contact our city manager. I said I would feel very put out if this proceeds with us not being at the table. And we need to be at the table, as Commissioner Morrow said. This is something that is critically important to us, and this is probably one of my criticisms about the bond. I don't know how the other two counties are dealing with their individual cities, but I will have to be critical of our county commission in the fact that with regard to the bond, they're holding on to the money so tight. As you noticed on your map, there's hardly anything over in our part of the metro region. And I think to me that is really due in part to their reluctance to use the funding as it was supposed to be used. I'm sure that there are other projects that are out there, and I really would like us to, like Metro, to be thinking about not only a policy on how the counties deal with the cities, but that there be some direct funding to the individual cities, because we know what we need. We have been talking, it seems to me, a brick wall when it comes to housing, transitional housing, and all these other things with our county colleagues. And I'm really very upset about the fact that they have not even bothered to have this conversation with us at all. And I hope that Metro does not approve anything for them without having us be at the table, because it just, again, we're in the same situation we are with the day facility that we have in the city right now. They have been funding them without even talking to us. And I have been asking for this conversation to occur for over 2 years now, and it's getting a little old.
Thank you, Mayor. I share your concerns, and I just want to be very clear that the way that the measure is formatted, they don't ask Metro for permission. What they were asking for was guidance about if they could use the dollars for capital improvement versus services. So we have no permission, authority. The place where I think there could be a foothold is if we wanted to read very closely the measure's commitment that we wouldn't centralize services. Basically speaking to Portland, they can't continue to put everything in Old Town, Chinatown. I would say a parallel would be Clackamas County can't continue to put everything in Oregon City.
Exactly.
And that might be something that I think we need the regional oversight, which is the oversight board made up of 5 individuals from each county to have them discuss and bring up if they have a lever.
Good. Well, again, I know that you will let us know if there's an opportunity for us to participate in anything of that sort. It's not that we want to dictate what happens. We want to be at the table so that they can understand what the impact is. And that is something that seems to have not been evident. We just had a situation occur where, even though it's an outright permitted use, we have a mental health treatment facility. They had been talking to the county. Nobody came and talked to Oregon City. And finally, I just said to the county, I said, look, we need to know about this. And I will say that through 2 of the department heads that I was working with, they were very helpful in getting a conversation going, and everything's fine. But it's another one of those after the fact things. So anyway, thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you all.
All right, next on our agenda, something that I have been waiting for all week. Mr. Lewis.
Time tonight. Yes, we're going to be talking to you about a lot of acronyms. And I brought with me today Marcos, and he is our water quality specialist who focuses mostly on surface water, stormwater programs, sampling, those kind of things. So Marcos has been with us not quite a year yet, and so he jumped into the position that was vacant by somebody who'd been with us for several years, and has really just kind of jumped in a pretty big way, working with our regional partners, our co-permittees, and the whole NPDES program was new to Marcos, so I'm proud of him for having jumped in the way he has. He's put together this presentation and is going to share it with you, and if he needed some support, I'm here for that. As you know, we've got a long history with an NPDES program, and we're doing good work there. This presentation is a mandate from the permit that we present to our governing body at least once a year. So hopefully there's no big surprises there, but if you've got questions, we'll go through those as well. So Marcos, turn it over to you.
Yeah.
And you
Well,
take it from
welcome,
here.
Marcus, and this is your first presentation for the commission.
And it's Marcos.
What? Marcos?
Yes.
Okay, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you all for giving me this opportunity to speak with you. First, I'll briefly explain water quality and how it affects the city's permit. Then I will demonstrate how we manage stormwater and permit requirements with our robust stormwater management plan and outstanding support from community partners. 81% of Oregon's rivers are impaired. 81%. Oregon City's biggest issue are irrigation runoff and road grime, improper pressure washing and vehicle maintenance, and general lack of understanding of what is allowed down the storm drain. Only rain down the drain, in case anybody's wondering.
Can I stop you for just a minute? I think in this case, the microphone might be too close.
Okay. How's this?
Try it again.
Test. All right. So yeah, once again, only rain down the drain. Oregon City has 15 drainage basins, a steep gradient, erosive soils, flashy creeks, and urban impacts like pesticides and the use of excessive fertilizer. We've managed to stabilize these long-standing conditions, but we need to continue to focus on improvement. Oregon's Department of Environmental Quality, or DEQ, issues MS4 permits to cities such as our own to ensure we are doing our part to reduce pollution discharge. MS4 stands for Separate Storm Sewer System. This has vastly reduced contamination from cross connections thanks to our aggressive inflow and infiltration reduction program. But that means there is no centralized treatment system for stormwater. Pollution is captured at the source and stratified throughout the city. While we continue to mechanically and chemically treat our wastewater, we rely heavily on plants and soil to manage stormwater pollutants. These pollutants include heavy metals like lead and cadmium, sediment runoff, pesticides, and excess nutrients, all human contributions. The city's National Pollution Discharge Elimination System, MS4 permit, contains a series of categories that provide us with a template for acceptable implementation that we can adapt to our city's unique needs. Oregon City developed a stormwater management plan, or SWAMP for short, that explains how the city will implement the 5-year permit issued in 2021 and describes how we will comply with these categories. The 2022 SWAMP was approved by DEQ in March of 2023, and we are currently implementing this plan. I developed this busy chart to digest and distill our stormwater responsibilities onto one page. I use this chart to help me stay on top of all of the deliverables required by the permit and outlined in our SWAMP. For example, education outreach element EO2 represents this presentation as an annual measurable goal. Just by looking at category D in the middle there, you can tell how important erosion control is to the success of this program. Category H, all the way on the end, represents all the elements that don't fit into one of these organized categories to the left. This includes much of our water quality monitoring elements, like pesticides. Yes, pesticides has been added to the list of substances we now test for. Evidence from a 2015 USGS study of Clackamas County suggests that Oregon City's urbanized creeks may be exceeding EPA's benchmark concentrations that prevent macroinvertebrates from surviving. These are little critters like mayfly and dragonfly larvae that cycle nutrients and feed the fishies. In addition to monitoring, we are also actively supporting a local campaign to educate residents about lawn care and the harms of using pesticides improperly. Urban areas emit mercury from fossil fuel combustion, metal manufacturing, cement and caustic soda production, medical and industrial waste, and cremations. Presently, there are no identified point sources of mercury pollution in Oregon City, but we are required to sample, so we chose a location that best represents the city's land uses. A great deal of effort is required to collect these samples to avoid contamination. So Mercury will be a regional effort coordinated by Water Environmental Services. They will be sampling 4 times a year at one location in Oregon City. That's number 14 on the screen. Lab analysis for both pesticides and mercury have been incorporated into the budget. Oregon City Public Works is actively engaging in capital improvement projects that emphasize water quality and continues to prioritize these improvements in neighborhoods that need it most. The state continues to raise the bar for stormwater regulations by requiring updates to documents and program elements that support an ever-growing need for clean water. Oregon City gladly embraces these updates for a brighter future and safer water for all. These documents undergo a thorough vetting process that ensures state approval and feasible implementation while supporting potential future needs. This summer, we have produced a green infrastructure strategy that publicly announces our methods for prioritizing green infrastructure and low-impact development, like rain gardens for Oregon City stormwater management. Monitoring changes like pesticides and mercury became effective this July and are now implemented during scheduled sampling events. We continue to make water quality capital improvements that modify stream hydrology to mimic pre-development conditions and update the state on our progress. Our industrial commercial strategy has been updated to reflect the current permit language, and we continue to screen new business licenses for best management practices as they are submitted. Both annual reporting measures are on track for completion before December 1st. They summarize our successful execution of all measurable goals listed in the Total Maximum Daily Load Implementation Plan and SWAMP document. Our community partners provide a valuable resource for outreach and public involvement. The Regional Coalition for Clean Rivers and Streams and Clean Rivers Coalition coordinate a lot of education outreach we participate in. Greater Oregon City Watershed Council helps us coordinate with streamside landowners to lower our temperature loading with invasive plant removal and native tree plantings. Clackamas County College and the Environmental Learning Center provide a platform for education and outreach that targets multiple demographics such as grade school, community adults, and maintainers. They educate the public on stormwater maintenance and water quality. The Association of Clean Water Agencies provides high-value, science-based practical services to its membership through education, regulatory advocacy, and partnerships for the development of proactive solutions. Brown and Caldwell provides Oregon City with an entire agency of specialists that act as a safety net for difficult to interpret components of the permit and TMDL implementation plan. In summary, our water quality program is robust. Our community partners help us juggle all the nuances of public outreach. We continue to update our dated infrastructure for optimal performance, and we continue to seek advances in design standards that keep us ahead of the permit requirements for long-lasting results. Thank you. You have adopted an aggressive capital improvement plan, and the work I do is often behind the scenes. But I recognize that stormwater quality in Oregon City is supported by the City Commission, and I thank you for making my job easier.
Are there any questions? Well, I have one. I think one of the things that I noted in your presentation was that, particularly about pesticides, so I think something that I would put out to not only Public Works but Parks is what are we doing to reduce our dependence on pesticides, particularly on our fields and things like that, because I know I don't want to be on a field, even though we do notify and we have signs, not everybody sees them. And I was wondering if there is something we can do to help reduce some of that. But that's for future discussion, but it's something that we need to be thinking about and something we should be implementing some sort of a plan. Because, you know, I see all these lawn care people and they don't even do anything. They just take their little wands and I don't know how effective that is. But I think if we're going to be setting an example, then we should be looking at that as well. I see Kendall is looking down.
Well, you sound like someone who has written regulation before, because that is a component of the plan, is to, one, educate folks about the use of those, but even our in-house results. We've got some work to do on that front as well. You know, products are used for a reason, but there's other less invasive ways that we could be using. So I appreciate the comment, and yeah, we will definitely be working on that as part of the permit.
Great. Thank you for a good presentation. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, so we have adoption of the agenda and consent agenda. I just wanted to make a note on the minutes of October the 10th. I am wondering if we could change the absent. When I see that, he was excused. So maybe it should say excused instead of absent.
The only requirement I'm aware of is that we are required to list the members of the governing body that were present. I don't think there's a restriction on what term we use for absent versus excused.
Yeah, that I was aware of. But we were aware that he was going to be excused for that particular time period. There, I guess I'll make a request. I'd like to pull 7A, and it's not because I am upset about it or concerned about it, but I think it's something that we should have a little more information about, because I don't know how many members of our public are aware of this particular program. So it's all positive. So is there a motion?
I don't want to pull 7B, but I want to make a comment. When you're
Please.
buying equipment and there's a trade-in value, that should be stated as a separate item, not that the trade-in value of all mowers is included in the pricing. We have no idea if there's any value to it or the trade-in value was zero. So it's just in the interest of being transparent and showing what value there was to equipment that was traded in. I'm not going to pull it. It's just advice to those preparing those reports.
I think you had mentioned that before when we were buying some vehicles.
I mean, that's standard business procedure. If you get some part of your cost recovery, if you have some part of your cost recovery due to trade-in, it should be stated. So this report is deficient in that way. Otherwise, I'm not going to pull it, though.
Oh, it's so noted. I think staff gets the message. Is there a motion?
I'll move to approve the consent agenda except for item 7A.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor of the motion? Oh, excuse me, roll call, sorry.
Commissioner Frank O'Donnell,
Aye.
Commissioner Rocky Smith,
Aye.
Commissioner Mike Mitchell,
Aye.
Commissioner Adam Marl,
Aye.
and Mayor Denise McGriff.
All right. If it's okay with you, since 7A is not going to take a really long period of time, if we could just get a little more information about this particular item. Mr. Zook, are you prepared to do that? I think it's a fabulous idea. We've done this for a number of years, and I think this is a great program. So this is an extension of a contract for water assistance provisions between Clackamas County and the City of Oregon City.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. Yeah, we actually, this program is an extension of a program that was approved by the commission a year ago. And unbeknownst to us at the time, we got an extension with some extra money. So it will continue to just be a pass-through from the county to our residents, and we'll continue to go towards helping the low-income residents with their water bills. Was there a specific question that you had that I can
No,
answer?
I just, my concern, my interest in it was the fact that I don't know, how do we get the word out to people about this? And the reason I wanted to pull it is just so that it's on this agenda and people are aware that we do have this low-income household water assistance program. And it is available, but again, how do people find out about it? And I know their income requirements and all of that, but I've seen it, I remember seeing it in one of the utility bills about a year and a half ago that talked about it. So I think with, the way things are going in terms of finances and people's incomes and the fact that, there's a, certain amount of resources, and we just recently, commissioners received a letter from a constituent regarding his county property taxes, which we don't have any control over, but I appreciate the fact that he did copy us, but he is a senior and he was concerned about the escalating costs of his property taxes, which again, you have to look at all the bonds and things that were recently passed. Ours stayed pretty much the same. We have not raised anything. So again, if there's another way for people to get some relief on some of the things that are causing them distress in terms of their outflow of their income, this is just a great program. So I'm just hoping we can do a little bit more to advertise it and let people know it's available.
Yeah, based on the decision of the commission this evening, we can put another flyer in the newsletter or in the utility bills, and then also have Jared put something on Facebook.
That'd be great.
So yeah, it's good. Thank you.
So since I pulled this, do we need a motion to accept this?
Move to approve item 7A.
Second.
Commissioner Frank O'Donnell,
Aye.
Commissioner Rocky Smith,
Aye.
Commissioner Mike Mitchell,
Aye.
Commissioner Adam Morrow,
Aye.
and Mayor Denise McGriff.
Thank you for doing that. This, like I said, this is just another opportunity for us to help our lower income seniors and help them stay in their homes.
I think
All
I
right.
missed your vote, Mayor McGriff.
Pardon?
Was that an aye?
Yes. Yeah, I
Motion
said aye.
passes.
All right, so we have no public hearings this evening, yay, and we have general business. So item 9A is Resolution 23-24, permanent obstruction in the public right-of-way at 9 27th Street. And for those of us who've been around here since Moses was a pup, it was the former Olson's drug property. Thank you, John.
Thank you. Does it sound okay?
Sounds great.
Okay. Right, so tonight before you, we have a resolution, and it is regarding the old Olson Pharmacy building. That building has been underdeveloped for many years, as this commission's talked about concern for that for many, many years. So to see construction activity on that site is a pretty exciting news, I think, for the community. This item is before you today because in the kind of more recent review of some of that proposal, this proposal has been around for years. And so earlier last month, I guess, it was brought to our attention that the second story has a couple of bump outs that bump into the public right-of-way. Now, normally we work hard to avoid that in our downtowns and along 7th Street corridor where we've got those zero lot line setbacks. There are instances of private building structures that bump into the right-of-way. Usually they're in the form of an awning or a cornice or something like that. In this case, there's a couple of bump outs that actually are part of the floor plan that bump slightly out into the right-of-way of Monroe Street, 7th Street, and the alleyway. And, you know, in looking through kind of some of the background on that, it was, my staff brought it to my attention that, hey, we've got, you know, this building that's been through the Historic Review Board process, been through the land use process, but it's got, you know, I think it was supported in the Historic Review Board because of the articulation of the frontages of those buildings, and they met that historic standard, but it just didn't come to light that that was in the public right-of-way until pretty late in the process, after building permits were issued, actually. So, it was my position, and I think staff were in agreement that, you know, the right way to do this is bring this before the city commission. It's not something that we feel like is a standard that we want to allow to happen regularly, but in this case, we're supporting that, the resolution that would allow the building to proceed as approved by the HRB, as approved by the building department, and now as approved by, well, it would be our approval, our recommendation is contingent upon your approval, really, but Public Works is also recommending approval of this as well. So, the graphic that we provided, I don't have a slideshow tonight for this particular topic, but we did provide a graphic that my staff put together that better highlight what exactly we're talking about that's in the public right-of-way. It's not an obstruction to the pedestrian traffic. I don't know, yeah, can you?
The one thing I would suggest is that for those of us that like to print stuff at home, I couldn't get it small enough to print it. It would not print. I reduced the size to 42%. Couldn't get it to come out.
I got it to do it, but yeah, it was a challenge. I agree with that. This is typically on a much larger format, and I was pleased that in the staff report you could zoom in and out of it and look at it. But yeah, I agree. Printing it is a challenge. But I did print it. But I'm also kind of hoping that we can zoom in on it a little bit, because just some of the notes there, yeah, that's a good note to kind of zoom in on. So really, kind of the biggest encroachment is about 3 feet.
So where's the street?
The street doesn't actually, so these are elevation views, so that this picture that we're looking at is actually the alleyway. So the other side of the building would be 7th Street. And then down below here, that's, that projection would be into Monroe Street. And really, it's not projecting into the, quote, street, it's projecting into the walkway. Yeah. And again, I mean, after recognizing the situation that we're in, I started looking at other buildings along the corridor and on Main Street. We have both fabric awnings in many locations that encroach even further than this. And we have more structured awnings, right? Not that aren't just kind of a bolt-on fabric frame, that are more a part of the building. Cornicing, even the fire station, some of those that have those decorative, what I call cornice, maybe that's the wrong term for it. But, you know, they're second story, they stick out over the sidewalk, or maybe there's a frontage entry that has a pilaster or something that's kind of bigger and encroaching into the right-of-way. We've got a fair amount of that that's just come about over the years. So to see this as something that's approved through the HRB, we didn't feel like the right decision was to ask the developer to change the building design and go back through the HRB process. But at the same time, we recognize that's not necessarily all our decision. It's more in your hands. So that's why we're here tonight.
Can you pull up the one that's the flat? There's another not an elevation, but it was the one that showed it from, like you're looking down on it. Same attachment.
Yeah, it's just right there.
So there is a difference between what you just described, is that those are all pre-existing. This is new construction, which to me is completely different. I understand.
I can't disagree with you on that.
No, I'm just saying, it's just a point of clarification. I don't want the community listening to this saying that this is something that we do on a regular basis, because all of those buildings, there were no building permits, there was no HRB for any of those that you're referring to. So this is, to me, this is a separate, unique circumstance that really doesn't have any precedent for new construction.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah,
And I
thank
would
you,
like,
Jacob.
I would
This is-
also
yeah,
like,
this is the one I really wanted to see,
and
so.
I would also really like to suggest that I don't think it's a good practice that we want to approve in the future. I'm just saying this one was, to me, was too far along to make the decision on our own to do something different. And I really think, based on what I've understood, what I understand now about what's at the right-of-way, what the other constraints are, what the neighboring buildings, while not approved, exist, it's within the character of the street.
Did you want to say something?
Yeah.
Go right ahead.
The only other thing I'll add is I know the developer and I don't know if engineer or architect are also here. So I didn't ask them to prepare anything, but they are here. So if you have questions for them.
At first that I looked at this, I really had not a lot of problem with it. And the more I look at it, the more I have a problem with it. On a couple of reasons. One, I can't believe I'm gonna say that I'm surprised, but, because I'm really not, but I can't understand how it got this far without knowing this. It is surprising. Because it has to go through a lot of process to get to start building, and they were, building started before we even got this figured out. I think the vagueness of some of the things in this report are, another thing that I had to look up that little sign, which I assumed meant approximate, because when I started looking at the encroachment on the Monroe side, which is clearly by the visuals a lot smaller than the encroachment on the 7th Street side. They both say approximately 3 feet. Approximately 3 feet could tell me it's anywhere between 2 and 4 feet, and 4 feet's a whole lot more. Especially when we don't have in the overview map the width of the sidewalk. If the encroachment is more than half the sidewalk, or even half the sidewalk, that's massive. So do we know what the widths of the sidewalk are on 7th and on both sides? I mean, because that
My
tells me
recollection, this is a recollection, my recollection is on 7th Street, we've got 10-foot sidewalks, and on Monroe, we've got 8. But I would need to validate
So
that.
widened them out when we did the 7th Street corridor.
So, I mean, a 3-foot encroachment on an 8-foot sidewalk is a lot different than,
Right.
and we know the exact measurements. I mean, they're building
We know
this
them,
thing.
I just don't have them.
So
in
we
front
know
of
the
me.
exact measurements, so why the sidewalk widths and why the exact measurements to the sidewalk encroachment aren't there, I don't know. That makes it vague and makes it a lot easier for us to just say, well, it's not a big deal, pass it on. But if we actually look at it, I'm assuming, based on this map, that the 7th Street side is close to probably 4 feet. And 4 feet going into that's a...
Yeah, we could probably, I think the applicant could probably answer that, but my notes
both
from,
sides?
the notes from my staff indicate that it's overhang of 3 feet.
Well, they can't both be overhangs of 3 feet because look at the drawing. They're not the same width.
Yeah.
So one of them,
I don't know if that's a scale or, alls I know is it says for Monroe Street and for 7th, 3 feet, but we could, I don't know if you'd
Well, it's
like
on the-
to
it's
see
on
if
the
the
second-
applicant can answer that.
Second
or not.
story.
no,
It's not on the
I
first- yeah, it's
understand
not
that,
on the
but when
first
you're
floor.
walking down the sidewalk and you see an overhang that goes over, it's just, I think we could have had more specifics on here and that it would say a lot more. Because right now we're just basing it on nothing. But I guess the main question is, according to this agreement, they have to remove it if the city at any time says remove it. Correct? And I don't know, it's one thing to remove an awning, it's another thing to remove the whole, front of a building when the city says it needs to be done.
Yeah, my recollection is I modified, when I read it the first time, the resolution, my
says-
concern was that, if the commission feels strongly about that, removal in the future is almost impossible. So.
Well, not according to the way this is written.
Yeah, let me, for some reason.
Now,
The resolution to allow a permanent right-of-way permit at 927th Street, so
No, I'm
proposed.
talking the actual section 1 of the covenant goes, permittees shall, at their sole expense, not cost to the city themselves through qualified independent contractors at all time maintain the obstruction in safe condition and good repair and in compliance with all state and local rules, regulations, and guidelines, etc. Or remove the obstructant as directed by the city for any reason, for any reason, provided 30 days notice.
Yeah,
So,
I think Commissioner Smith, I caught it in the resolution.
well, it's in the report.
You're talking about in the covenant, our form,
Yes.
our standard form, right? Yeah, so if it's in
Well,
the
if this isn't
standard.
a standard thing, I wouldn't be putting a standard form in the report.
Say that again? I missed it.
If this is not a standard,
I might
think-
weigh in on this a little bit. That is a standard thing in our obstructions in the
Yes.
right-of-way, because the right-of-way in streets and right-of-ways are dedicated to the city. We're required to have them available for transportation. At this point, the city doesn't need that particular part of the right-of-way, so we're allowing obstructions. But in order to continue to have it available, should we need it in the future, we have that requirement in every obstruction, every covenant, every obstruction where somebody's allowed to put something in the right of way, so
Right,
that is
so-
standard.
so
So,
we can remove it.
or we can remove the language from the form. Because the reality of it is, to me, it's back to the reality. I understand, this is our standard form language, and I
know,
probably
what
should have
I'm saying
edited
is,
that.
why would you put the standard form in the packet if this is not a standard thing that we're following? I mean, if we were gonna have to rewrite that, then it's not standard anymore.
You're right.
And that's buried in the document, which, I only just recently found. So anyone else, I mean, are we saying we're not gonna have them sign this agreement the way it is?
Well, I think my intention when I reviewed this report was to remove the option of a future removal of that building. I didn't really want that language in there, so I removed it from the resolution. Where I didn't get it removed was in this agreement form. So.
Okay, well,
My
I'll just say
mistake there.
this.
But what I'm saying is the approval should be conditioned upon this being not a revocable right-of-way obstruction. If you're not willing to accept that, then we need to talk to the developer now and have them change their building design, and I think that needs to go through some process. Or we approve it conditioned upon I fix this
I think that can
indemnity
happen.
and release form to strike that language that you pointed out.
Or we leave the language in, and the developer is taking that risk.
Absolutely.
Right, I mean, I think we should leave it in if that's the way it's supposed to be, but, because, I mean, and the likelihood that that's gonna ever happen, but 100 years from now, if, some city needs to widen the street, they're gonna say, hey, take it down, they have to take it down.
Exactly.
So I think we need to keep it there. So I want the, I guess my main concern is, because like I said, when I looked at this at first, I was like, oh, it's not really a big deal. It's not really a big deal on the developer side or the building owner's side, but it's a big deal within our staff that this got through without being noticed. And then not only that, but then to have complete accurate facts that we know to be true and kind of generalize them in a report, like the exact measurements. We know what the exact measurements are of that building. They're building it right now, right? And to say average, and then to look at when one average is the same as the other average, but then it's very clear that it's at least a foot wider. And then to not have the sidewalk widths to compare it to, we're going at it blind, and if you just look at it at a glance, it looks fine, which is exactly what happened when I looked at it at a glance and talked to the city manager, but I had no issue with it. But I have an issue with the report, I have an issue with the process, and it's sneaky. It's sneaky, because we screwed up, and we want to get it through, we want to appease the builders, because we wanted them to build a building, which we all have wanted to be there for years. And so we're really kind of willing to overlook it, but I'm not willing to overlook the sneakiness and the kind of tricks here in this report. So there's that.
Well, I guess one of the things that I do agree with you, John, that I do believe that the sidewalk on 7th Street definitely is 10 feet, because when we did the 7th Street corridor project, they were all widened. I am not as certain about the width of the sidewalk on Monroe. No, I'm not calling anybody from the audience at this time. I'm not calling anybody from the audience at this time. He has his hand up, so I'm just letting him know. So that would be the only piece of information that I would want to know right now, is how wide the sidewalk is on Monroe. And I think if we can pull up we got this fabulous GIS program, we could pull it up and look at it in like a few minutes.
It's a little smaller, but I'm not.
I know it's smaller, but.
It's small.
So I don't have a problem with it, because I know what Peter Ing, who's the owner of the property, has gone through these many years and trying to get gone to Historic Review Board at least 3 times. I'm not surprised that the documents are not as detailed as they should be, because we have experience knowing about this project that they have not been as detailed. So if we can just get the answer to the Monroe Street sidewalk, I'm okay with this.
You're okay with it?
Yeah, because it's
Without changing
it's
the-
9 feet above, the right of way. And I don't know if we have any 9-foot tall people wandering around, but like I said, I'm sympathetic to the property owner. And I know that he's been through a lot with the recession, COVID, everything, stop, starting. So do we have the ability to pull that up?
OC map is what she's looking for, I think. You're right, we do know the details of these specific dimensions. We just did not, provide that detail in this report.
Well, those aren't our plans, though.
They're not our plans, no, but
So what? It's our report.
we tried to use
It's
graphics
our
that,
report, but the plans should have had that information on them, and that's not something we would have produced.
but there are other, so in the magnitude of building plans, there's specific details on this dimension. We just didn't prepare that, and I don't have that to share with you. I don't believe any of the elevations that we have show that
Can't get on.
sidewalk.
Okay, that's all right.
Can't get on?
He can't get in.
Okay.
So are you saying?
I estimated about 8 foot. It looks like between
Yeah.
8
That's
and 8 and 8 and a half.
that's
it
my
looks like.
gut. Is
Look, going from
For what?
the GIS property line to roughly where the car is parked on Monroe. I don't think it's 10.
Yeah, no, I know it's not 10, but I thought it was somewhere between 7 and 8, so thank you for confirming that. So don't try anymore, Jacob, it's not gonna let you in.
Okay.
Our city manager has come to the rescue once again. So what's your pleasure, gentlemen? Do we have a motion?
Well, I'd like to make
Please make a comment.
I'm not sure the sidewalk width matters. It's more the extension from the building, the visual look of it. It's 9 feet above the ground. Does it matter if the sidewalk is 8 feet or 10 feet when it's 9
Visually
feet
it
up?
does when you're driving down the corridor and you're
The
walking the
sidewalk?
sidewalk.
No, but the difference is the extension from
Yeah.
the building.
Well, if I'm walking down a sidewalk and I see an obstruction that goes the whole length of the
An
sidewalk,
extension,
that's
yes.
a major obstruction. If it's half, that's a pretty big one too. If it's just a couple feet out, no, it's not a big deal at all. So
Okay.
visually it does. But I guess my question, and if we go back to it at some point, is I have no problem with it at all, no matter how wide it is, as long as we can tear it down in the future.
Yeah, and we can.
So that will decide my vote.
I think it makes it a more interesting looking building.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, so I said, I participated in all the public hearings involving this project, so I know this project.
But I think there is a lesson that we need to learn here, as Commissioner Smith pointed out. We don't want to do this again.
Right.
No, I think the lesson is that we require details on the submittals before they get to the staff, so that the staff can look at this and know that that's what they are seeing. That's my concern. So, yes, sir.
I concur with what Commissioner Mitchell just said. I really resent it when things are placed before us for modifications to be made with the argument that they're so far in the process that it would be a disaster if we were to not approve it, and so therefore we have to. That was my first ever meeting that I had on this commission, was for those Canema cottages. Not saying that they're the same situation, but a matter of when things get so far along that it feels impossible to change things. With that being said, with the verbiage that's in there about future uses, I'm fine with it, and I am glad to see that there is something going up here.
Yes. Is there a motion?
So I want to check, Bill, the resolution is the document that I revised, so it'd be revising that resolution to add back the removal option.
I don't believe it's absolutely necessary in the resolution. Where it's absolutely necessary is in the covenant, which still contains it in paragraph 1, as Commissioner Smith indicated.
Okay.
So is there a motion?
I move to approve resolution number 2324.
Second.
Commissioner Frank O'Donnell?
Aye.
Don't you have to read it? You don't have to read it?
Resolution.
Okay, go ahead.
Commissioner Frank O'Donnell?
Aye.
Commissioner Commissioner Rocky Smith? Commissioner Rocky Smith?
So do we have to come back and deal with that other piece,
No.
or we don't?
No.
No.
We do not. It's going to stay in there as it can be taken out in the future.
Reluctantly, aye.
Commissioner Mike Mitchell?
Aye.
Commissioner Adam Morrow?
Aye.
And Mayor Denise McGriff?
Aye.
Motion passes.
All right. Item
you.
9B. Direct the Planning Division to proceed with zoning amendments for Clackamas Park Recreational Vehicle Park.
Hi, good evening. I do not have a presentation. I think it's a fairly straightforward request. So when the master plan for Clackamas Park went to Planning Commission, and so let me back up a little bit. So because the park is over 10 acres and it's an institutional use, it's zoned institutional, it's required through the land use code to go through a master plan. And for all of our millions of listeners out there, this master plan is not the same as the park's overall city master plan. It's unfortunately a confusing term. So when the master plan for the land use action for Clackamas Park went to Planning Commission, we reviewed and presented the whole master plan. And we discovered that the RV parking, where it's proposed to be moved to, is not in an institutional zone. It's in mixed use downtown zone. It's city-owned property. It's been used for the park. I believe it's been used for overflow parking, but there isn't an allowance for camping in mixed-use downtown. And it does not seem appropriate to change all of mixed-use downtown to allow camping. It seems more appropriate to change the 2 parcels where the RV park is proposed to be located to institutional, because it's part of the park, anyway, is serving the park. So the proposal, and actually, let me back up a little bit. The master plan was approved by the Planning Commission with a condition of approval that the RV parcels get rezoned, a comp plan amendment, a rezone, and a text amendment. And so what it would look like is changing those two parcels from mixed-use development, mixed-use downtown to institutional would be the zoning. The comp plan would be, I think it's it's public, quasi-public is the comp plan designation. And then we would add some text to institutional that's very specific about allowing RV camping when it's part of a city park usage. So basically what we're asking is for your direction to move forward with those amendments.
You have a question? Comment?
Both. Do we know when the zoning was changed to mixed use downtown? Because I bet you it was institutional and we changed it to mixed use downtown. And now we're asking to be changing it back.
I do not know.
I want to know that because I believe, so that we know that was the fire station training. There was that parking lot used to have a tower on it for training purposes for the fire department. So my belief is that would have been institutional. But prior to that, that area was the sewer treatment plant. So my point here is we went out of our way to make sure that lot was mixed use downtown. Why? Because the last 15 or 20 years, it's a hotel site that we've been planning for and have all just talked about. So that is why that was changed. So that's part of what I want to bring up because now we're kind of going back. I don't have a problem changing the wording to allow RV parks in other places other than what's in a park. But I do have a problem with changing the zone, especially since we don't know that that's where the RV park's going to go. And we can debate whether or not that's true or not, but we planned a walkthrough where two commissioners want to walk through at least discussing two possible locations for the RV park besides the current one. And one of the other commissioners sitting up here is, I think, one who had at least talked about or questioned the possibility of moving the RV park to another portion of the park. But that's not something we've all had as a conversation or even a dialogue to even to talk about whether it's even remotely possible. So going forward in a process to change the zoning before we even really actually know that that's what's going to happen, I think is kind of planning for a future that we already want to predict. So I just want to, the other thing is this under city property or urban renewal property? I need to be reminded because we interchange these so often that we pretend like we know they're the same thing, but we interchange to change them. Because we put a sign on that property for many, many years, contacting economic development. So that whole purpose of that lot was to try to, and I'm not saying that the RV park isn't part of economic development, but it wasn't only until even just a few years ago that we even talked about that as an option for the RV park. The vision of that property has been talked about for a long time, wasn't an RV park, and most of the memory of that I have.
I think if I could maybe, we can go back and look some more, but as I recall, I think that this used to be commercial back in.
Even when the fire department was using it?
Well, I think it went from, I think this was the sewer treatment facility.
It was industrial.
No, I know, but
and then it went to the
fire
department. And I think that when we started looking into it, I believe that there was a reversionary clause in there because this piece came from the county.
Yes.
So it was originally, okay.
I think it was the county with the sewer plant.
Right.
It was given to the city,
Okay.
not a renewal to the city.
Okay.
But I believe that when we started looking at trying to develop that parcel, when we started looking at the title, I believe there was a reversionary clause back to the county if it wasn't used for a park purpose. And I think that.
You're correct on that.
And I think it was commercial, and I think when we did the zoning changes in like 2002, 2004, 2008, somewhere in there.
Commercial
is when we came up with that institutional zone, but then we also took, we had downtown commercial, we had general commercial, we made that mixed-use downtown zone, and I think we just overlaid it over the commercial properties, because I don't think we had a thought, at that time, we still thought we could sell it for a hotel or a different use, until we got further along and realized there was that reversionary clause. There was a discussion, could we go to the county and ask them to remove that reversionary clause, which would be an option, but then it never really went anywhere.
And that is still in effect?
Yes.
Yes.
And we had a for sale sign on it for how many years?
Well, once we figured that out, it was stopped.
How does this stuff happen? Honestly.
We could ask to have that reversionary clause removed.
We could, yes.
I don't want to have it removed.
Okay, well,
Basically, it was industrial.
I'm just trying to lay out the history of how we got to where
It was
we are.
industrial in the 80s because it had a sewer treatment plant on it.
Right.
And then for some reason, because what I remember when I was on the planning commission, we changed all the city-owned properties to institutional.
Right.
And there was a big debate on planning commission about whether that was the most, that term was the most appropriate to use for properties that were owned by the city. So, again, we always, once we found out about the reversionary clause in the title, it has always been since then for park purposes. Now, I don't recall any sign being up on there other than the property that McDonald's is on. That's where the sign was.
No,
That
you're
before
wrong.
McDonald's.
You were wrong.
Well, I worked for the city at the time. I remember the
No,
sign.
I'm
being-
talking in the last 10 years.
Yeah.
We've had signs on that property for sale.
Yeah, well,
And that was
yeah. So,
part of urban renewal conversations, which is why I'm asking these questions. So,
but the city owns it, not the urban renewal, so.
well, we interchange those a lot when it fits our purpose, regardless.
Don't say we.
Well, you said we, when you weren't on the commission, when that for sale sign was up and saying we didn't put a for sale sign. Yeah, we did put a for sale sign there. You didn't.
Nope.
So that's not a we.
Yeah.
Regardless, we don't know if the RPV park is going to be there yet. We haven't had that conversation. We haven't followed up after that meeting we had for a walkthrough. So in the sense of zoning, I don't want to vote for any zone change until we know what that future is, because then we'd be back for another zone change to change it back to something else. So that's part of it. I don't have a problem changing the wording to allow a broader use of where RV parks could go, because if there is another option nearby that is not currently park space, then that's possible, and I'm willing to take that vote. But I think there was so many conversations about parking and about economic development. I think if we could have, well, anyway, I'll just end it there. I'm a no vote if it's the way it's written.
Mike, do you have any comments about whether to do a comp plan amendment and a zone change, or just change the language to allow for city-managed, city-owned RV park?
RV park or RV parking?
Well,
Both of it, yes, yeah.
I'm assuming if you have a recreational vehicle park, you're parking there, so, with RVs.
Well, there's a difference between parking one somewhere and hooking it up to utilities and power. If I may, Commissioner.
Yeah.
Go ahead. We took this tour and we bannered about many good ideas, some of which originated with you due to the elevation of certain areas that would be made more sense for an RV park, not this place, but others. And then we walked the whole thing and we discussed other possible concepts, including a piece of land that's not in the park that has the same elevation as that proposal you brought to mind, but was on the other side of the highway, closer to the cove. And we looked at so many things and we discounted a lot of things, but I think to forego all those conversations and immediately just do this zone change is premature. I mean, we had we discounted moving the RV park to what I call upriver, which the treat area, because it gives you no advantage over the floodplain, a one-year advantage. But we talked about maybe moving it to the boat parking area, the boat parking area. And then we talked about moving it across the street. And I mean, I think the whole concept could be the best concept ever if we just give a little time. And this piece of property, regardless, I mean, it's still would be a heck of a piece of property for a hotel, just built on stilts, just like the others. So I'm going to be a no on changing this zoning at this point, because we haven't fully explored the other possibilities that we discussed on the tour, which included City Manager Conkle and the architect and those commissioners that were in town at the time and available to do it.
Mr. Mitchell.
So, well, on this, to me, it's a bigger question. Forget about what might end up there.
Yeah.
Do we think that property is part of the park? Ultimately.
Is it or is it? Is it?
No, it's not I'm not a legal question.
Right.
Whatever master plan, is that property going to be part of the park? The rest of the park property is zoned institutional, right?
Correct.
So if we think that's going to be part of the park, it should be zoned institutional also for consistency's sake. Regardless of what we end up, either we change the master plan or we don't change the master plan, if it's part of the park, let's make it institutional so that then we can, if we decide, however that process rolls out, that we're going to move the pieces around, it's all zoned institutional to allow whatever park use we want to put there.
I don't disagree with that.
And for me, I'm not convinced at this point that it'll be part of the park. So that's why I wasn't moving forward on supporting a zone change.
Well, I agree with you. I think it's always, in my opinion, it's part of the park. And I don't disagree with your comment, although I think at this point, what I would suggest is that we just change section 1739 to add it as an accessory use under the current zoning, under the zoning of institutional, so that if and when it's already listed there, we can do the other part later.
I'm sorry, say that again?
In her report, she has as an option amend chapter 1739 to make city managed recreational vehicle park an accessory use.
In
chapter 1739.
In the MUD zone or
no.
in the institutional?
In the institutional. We could also add it as an accessory use in the MUD zone. That way it kind of covers both things. You're looking crazy over there.
Well, if I may, so adding the language would be helpful because we currently have an RV park in institutional, but we don't have a listed use
exactly
that allows that. So to Commissioner Mitchell's point, if we change just the language and not the zone or the comp plan amendment, it would kind of bring us up to date, if you will. It would
legitimizes the RV park as a use that's allowed in that zone.
Okay, thank you, yes. And I would not recommend that we add it to the mixed use downtown as a accessory use.
Well, then I'll go back to my first premise, which is just amend the institutional zone to allow for that as an accessory use, since it's already there. Whether it moves or not, it needs to be legitimized.
How long will this process take? If we tell you today, change the zoning, how long would it?
So if we get direction tonight to make any one of these changes, we're looking at first planning commission meeting in December, and then we'd be back here in January.
So pretty quick.
Yeah, there's not a lot of back work. It's mostly taking into account notification periods that we need to do. So there's been plenty of work done on the master plan already. You know, there's findings that we can pull from, there's application, you know, we have narrative. We basically have it ready for something to go if we get direction.
The reason I ask is given that time frame, it seems like a lot of the other decisions that we have to make, not to mention finding funding, et cetera, is going to take a whole lot longer than this. So I'm kind of like, what's the hurry, I guess? Other than we should get that language in there so that our existing RV park is legitimate.
Adam?
So if this commission were to give direction that we would want to change the pieces in the layout of the master plan, what would that process look like since it's already been adopted by the planning commission and doesn't require commission approval?
So if the master plan, I realize you're looking over
We'd be
there.
amending it, wouldn't we?
Right, yeah, we would go back and amend the master plan. It would be a planning commission hearing to amend it.
I would imagine we would probably have work sessions with the city commission, whatever process they wanted to go through to make a determination of how the adopted Clackamas Park master plan should be amended. Once we would probably bring that back for agreement in a public meeting by the commission, and then we would have to go through the process then of adopting the amended plan that went to the planning commission. So one is more of a process and direction from the commission, and then once we have that plan, we would take it through the process to approve it through the land use process.
All right, so I supported us going back and having a conversation about the alternative uses as a courtesy, and also because I was open to the fact that different ideas should be incorporated since we were a small commission at that time. And so I still stand by the fact that we went back and had a good conversation about it. But for me, I'm still supportive of the master plan as adopted. That's what our community has told us that they want. And to Commissioner Mitchell's point, regardless, it's good to have consistency in the zoning there. So I'm supportive of moving forward.
Okay, so what's your pleasure?
Question.
Sure.
So Commissioner Mitchell asked the question, or made the comment that that is completely separate than the issue of the RV park being wherever it is. So does that mean we're still going to have that conversation? Because if not, Commissioner Adam Marl's point of saying we were going to have a dialogue and you conceded to us having that dialogue, we had a meeting, we had a walk around that was supposed to spur those conversations to then have a conversation. We have not had that conversation, we had the tour. So that dialogue hasn't happened from that tour. And Commissioner Mitchell was not on that tour, but yet on that tour we heard some concept ideas that apparently, and I don't know this is secondhand or thirdhand about the idea, but I have never had a conversation with Commissioner Mitchell about his theory or ideas or questions about possible placements. So if that's not going to still happen, then why did we even have a walk around? Why did we even have the ability to have that conversation? Because the conversation hasn't happened yet. If you're true to your word, you'll let that conversation happen. So we can take the vote based on that.
Or not.
Well, as part of the conversation that I supported having, it was the work session that we had. That was what I suggest. That's what I
Which spurred the tour, did it not?
I did not request a tour.
I didn't say you did, but there was a tour.
We did the tour, and then we had the we had a tour the Monday, then we had the work session, I think, the next night.
Yeah, I did not request a tour.
But Commissioner Mitchell was not
He was unavailable.
part of that.
Yeah, and I
Right.
wasn't available.
So my real question is, Commissioner Mitchell, if we are separating these two issues, are you still saying that we're going to have that conversation? Or was that just a way to split it so we would vote for this and move on and lock us into that? I mean, that's a sincere question.
I don't see as one necessarily leading to the other. If we change that
I'm just saying, are you willing to then have a conversation about the placement of the RV park after this meeting, or not?
To have the discussion? Yeah, yes. I want to be clear on one thing. The idea that I put forward, and I'll just, for simplicity's sake, was putting the RV park where the current parking is for the boat ramp. I advocated for that at the beginning of the entire public process. I believe at the first meeting, if not at the first meeting, at the second meeting. Didn't continue to press for it.
Okay.
I assume it was probably presented at some point. I just want to be clear. I'm not jumping in now at the last minute, now that we have an approved master plan, and saying, here's what we should have done instead. It's something that I advocated back.
Well, okay.
Just to be clear.
And that's part of why I wanted to have because this is the first time I've talked to you about it.
Yeah.
So I didn't know that. I don't remember that ever coming up in that process about that. So that's why I feel, well, I mean, and I'm not denying that happened. I didn't know that, which is why a conversation would have helped to have that conversation, which we asked for and haven't really finalized with the whole commission. The whole point was we were going to have an opportunity to have a dialogue as a whole commission after that, and the whole commission wasn't here. And we had to walk through, and so I feel like there still is that missing component. If you don't agree, that's fine, move on.
Mr. Conkle, when did we have the work session after? We had a work session.
It was the day after, but Commissioner Mitchell was not there.
We had a work session.
The day after the tour. We already answered that question.
Okay, I just want to be clear.
If I may, in the course of the tour, other options presented themselves.
Yes, beyond that.
Beyond that are worthy of discussion. And the only thing I would say is, remember what we're voting on tonight. We're voting on a zone change.
Yeah.
And quite honestly, Commissioner Mitchell hit on, with all that remains to be done, with the options that remain to be analyzed, what's the hurry? So I'm not in favor of doing this tonight.
I'm in favor of legitimizing the current use in the current zone for Clackamas Park. Because right now, it's not really in the code. And I would like us to clean that up. It's only going to take a couple of months. I'd just rather get it done. We can deal with the other stuff later. It doesn't affect where the RV park goes in the future. It only applies to what we currently have right now, which is why I was suggesting that we just amend Chapter 1739 to allow for the accessory use of an RV park in the institutional zone, which it currently is in today. That's my suggestion. I can't make the motion, but that would be the motion if I was to make it. Somebody want to make that motion?
How are we operating an RV park without following our own rules?
Well, think of back when the RV park was put in there. It's a rhetorical question. We're trying to clean up stuff that happened 30 years ago.
Well, I won't be making that motion, so maybe we should survey if anybody's going to do it.
That's your direction. We're not going to do anything. Nobody wants to make a motion. I can't make a motion, so we're not doing anything.
Well, I'm just curious to hear if Commissioner Mitchell has any other comments or... Because I mean, when I supported having that conversation, I also was under the impression that Commissioner Mitchell would be there, and I wanted that to happen because he was not a commissioner then, but he was also involved with it as a planning commissioner, I believe. So, I mean, the fact that we weren't able to have him there was something that, I didn't foresee happening, and so I am curious to hear what he thinks on this. But like I said, I'm supportive of moving forward on it.
Or would you be supportive of just making that one change?
Adding language to legitimize the current RV park? Yes. I'll make that motion.
Okay, well, I'll second it.
Was that a motion?
which would be to add language to the institutional zone that allows operation of an RV park in that location.
As an accessory use.
Right, the way the
Any
language,
location that's that zoning.
Well, that I don't want to do.
Well, that's what it would do.
well, so we could amend the
It says
institutional
for
district.
Clackamas Park parcels, city-managed recreational vehicle park for Clackamas Park on parcels, and those are the specific parcels that are in Clackamas Park today. It would not apply to any other part of the institutional zone, so you couldn't put an RV park at the old Public Works site on Center Street.
Okay. Then you might as well go for the zoning too. It's the same thing, basically.
It's just amending the code,
Well,
legitimizing.
We can amend that and strike those specific parcels and just leave it at city-managed recreational vehicle park for Clackamas Park
Right. I'm fine with that.
and strike the rest of it.
Okay.
So, excuse me, I just need some clarification. So does that mean that the parcels would not be institutional and not be used?
Correct. Until there's a decision made.
Right, so the two parcels are those.
The only thing, we
that's
would not be
the-
rezoning anything. The two parcels next to McDonald's would stay mixed use downtown. at
Okay,
this
so those are the two tax lots for those two parcels. Okay, then strike that,
So
sorry.
that
I thought
eliminates-
those were the Clackamas Park
So
parcels.
that eliminates our ability to move forward on getting funding for any part of the park. We're just going to stop. So, because since we don't have an adopted master plan, we can't move forward with having the conversations about getting funding for a plan that is not approved.
We do have an adopted master plan.
For Clackamas Park.
Its condition of approval was set to change the zoning for those two parcels to institutional to allow for the RV park to be relocated. And that ties into the master plan. If we don't have that, the plan will not move forward and be adopted. So I just want to remind you that the whole point of going through this public process over the 2 years was to get public input, to incorporate the city commissioners and stakeholders to get some direction on what this final plan needs to be moving forward and what the community wants. So we could then take this plan, once adopted, to go out and get the funding that we need to start the building of the park. So if we can't move forward with the adoption of the master plan and have a plan to go out to get that funding, we're just kind of at a standstill. And I also wanted to highlight, I appreciate the conversations that we had when we did the tour. There was a lot of great insight, but the conversations brought up the fact that the other locations are still in floodplains. And the cove was not a part of the conversation because it wasn't a part of Clackamas Park. So that's why it wasn't incorporated in the Clackamas Park master plan design. And so moving it to the cove or moving it over towards the water, there were certain issues associated with locating it in those particular areas. That's why the two tax lots were chosen as the area, and that's why we needed these changes to move it out of floodplains, period. So the other two areas we looked at don't move it out of the floodplain.
Well, there's a floodplain, and then there's years that those floodplains are in danger. There's a 1-year floodplain, a 2-year floodplain, a 100-year floodplain. So I wouldn't use it interchangeably.
But the two tax lots put it in a 10-year floodplain. Those other two areas do not do that. The other two areas that were proposed don't do that.
I agree, yeah. Part of the master plan, again, as he stated, is that the community basically said they didn't want the RV park in that particular location because they wanted more access to the river, they wanted more open space to the river, and they wanted to... Trails and a restoration of the bank at this point in time. And so that can't happen with the RV park as it's currently located. That's why it was proposed by the community and approved by the Planning Commission to move it out of there to meet the purposes of what the community asked us to do.
However, if the community knew there was another option outside the park, and that was thought about, or even not as an option, that conversation would have been a whole lot different.
We were only talking about Clackamas Park.
I understand that at the time, and that's why we got to that only one solution. If that conversation would have been broader, the community may have said everything. That's how we direct outcomes in this town. We define the outcomes that we want, and we let the citizens choose between the options we give them. We did not give them all the options. But carry on. Take the vote.
Well, I think that we did give the community we didn't define the options, the community defined the options. Again, this was a bottom-up process, this was not.
And at the time, we had plans for the Cove. We do not have plans for the Cove today. So, yes, I understand that. That was not a consideration for the public to think.
Why would we put an RV park in a floodplain? Move it from one floodplain to another floodplain? I don't understand.
On the walkthrough, my memory was the elevation of the street, which is the elevation of those parking lots, is essentially the same or lower than the space that we talked about on the Cove.
That's correct.
But you were not on the tour.
No, because Mike and
Nor was the rest of the commission. Which is why I have a feeling that we should have had that conversation as the rest of the commission said we would. But take the vote.
Call for the question.
Just for the record purposes, this is a vote. I'd like to restate the motion. It's to give staff direction to bring back changes to the institutional zone to allow the RV park.
Yes.
Is that correct?
But not for the 2 parcels?
The motion, the original motion, the way it was proposed, was just the text amendment to the institutional zone. It did not address the rezoning of the 2 parcels next to McDonald's from MUD to institutional.
That's correct, Mike.
Yes.
Commissioner Frank O'Donnell?
No.
Commissioner Rocky Smith?
No.
Commissioner Mike Mitchell?
Aye.
Commissioner Adam Morrow?
Aye.
And Mayor Denise McGriff?
Aye.
Motion passes.
So, Mr. Conkle, let's get this continued conversation or a one-way conversation or whatever conversation it is scheduled, because I personally, I don't want to move the RV park to the Cove, but that, I'm willing to have more discussion about it. I don't want to move it from one floodplain to another floodplain, and putting an RV park next to the Cove to me precludes a development plan that we, at least as an urban renewal commissioner, envision for something else. So, all right.
So we'll add this as a work session topic
Yes.
to review the walkthrough and the RV component.
It would be good to have a work session with the entire commission present for a change and not with any missing members, and to reveal those things that we saw on that tour and talk about elevations and floodplains and possible alternatives, and just banner it about among everyone instead of at any given time one or more of us is missing, including me.
I think I've missed one meeting, and I guess I picked the wrong one to miss.
No, you didn't pick the wrong one to miss. You're allowed to have self-care time away. All right, 9C, second reading of ordinance number 231005, revising the Oregon City Municipal Code, Title 5.04, business licenses. So this is a second reading. I don't know if we really need a big, long report.
I'm just here to answer questions.
So let's have a motion.
Move to approve.
Second. It's been moved and seconded to approve the second reading of ordinance number 231005. Go ahead,
Ordinance
Bill.
number 23-1005, an ordinance of the City of Oregon City revising the City Code Municipal Code Title 5.04, business licenses.
Commissioner Frank O'Donnell?
Aye.
Commissioner Rocky Smith?
Aye.
Commissioner Mike Mitchell?
Aye.
Commissioner Adam Morrow?
Aye.
And Mayor Denise McGriff?
Aye.
Motion passes.
9D, resolution 2325, revising business license fees. It's pretty straightforward. Let's have a motion.
Move to approve resolution number 23-25.
Second.
Commissioner Frank O'Donnell?
Aye.
Commissioner Rocky Smith?
Aye.
Commissioner Mike Mitchell?
Aye.
Commissioner Adam Morrow?
Aye.
And Mayor Denise McGriff?
Aye.
Motion passes.
And I just did want to clarify, because we did make one change, was, as you recall, whenever there's a renewal, there was a reduction. So we also applied that reduction on a renewal to home-based businesses as well. Just wanted to clarify that. Okay.
Thank you. That's great. That'll be a nice economic development boon, correct? Thank you for your stunning report, Mr. Graham. All right. Communications.
I have nothing tonight, ma'am.
Well, we have a meeting coming up on the 7th. We have a meeting coming up on the 7th.
We do. Yes, we have a work session on the 7th, a joint meeting with the City of Westland councilors, followed by a work session reviewing the walkway work along 99E, as well as the destination marketing organization discussion.
Okay. Is everybody going to be able to be in attendance for that? I guess we'll figure out where we're going to have to eat later, since we're hosting them as well. Commissioners, Mr. Mitchell?
Nothing.
Not even that you had a fabulous time on your trip? Mr. Morrow?
Already touched on it when Councilor Lewis was here, just that I'm very upset with how things have transpired as it relates to that navigation center, and that I'm hopeful that moving forward we can be a part of those conversations, because we deserve to be a part of those conversations.
Would it be appropriate for me to send a note to our friends at Clackamas County reiterating that?
I mean, I don't know, they've already approved the money, so.
Well, I think this is just another example of do as I say and not as I do.
Was that done in a public meeting?
I have no idea.
With proper notification,
We have no
all of
idea.
that? That's just a question.
I believe it was at one of their board meetings, yeah.
Which, again, they didn't have the courtesy to notify us, so I just want to make sure that they understand where we're coming from before I make a big stink and blow this thing up, so. Mr. O'Donnell?
Nothing that wouldn't appear angry or venomous, so I'll just be quiet.
Thank you. Mr. Smith?
I think I could come up with a few fun things, nice things. Trick or treat event last night was great, and I want to thank everyone involved in that, and the police department. I mean, it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. Tons of kids, and that event always brings memory of Officer Libke, and it's hard to believe it's been 10 years. Probably the one event that really affected me the most of the entire time I've been on the city commission, and a lot of us, and it just brings back a lot of memories and a lot of things. It's just hard to believe it's been 10 years. So I want to pass my thoughts on to the family, and I will not be able to attend on Friday, but
You'll be there in spirit.
I'm glad to see where we're at in Oregon City with this amazing building, and what has happened in the last 10 years in the city in terms of changing for the better, and supporting and honoring the history of the 2 officers that lost their lives in this town. So anyway, I'll end it at that.
Thank you for that. I just want to add my thank yous to the staff that was present at the downtown trick-or-treating. I will say that it was the usual event, and I'm really tired from it, because my feet were hurting. But it was again, several parents made a suggestion, and I will present this to the Downtown Association. I don't know how well it'll work, but they suggested that they have one side of the street go one way and the other side, because we had...
To a loop, yeah.
To make it a loop, because we had, not only did we have somebody on a wheeled vehicle going down the street, there was a woman who was pushing a wagon with some rabbits in it that were dressed up in, which took up the whole side. I mean, it was cute, but it caused congestion problems with these things. So we'll see what we can work out between the city and the Downtown Association. But thank you to everybody who participated, and it was fun. I also want to thank the library staff for their usual variety. It was fun while I was out of town watching the postings every day on Facebook that would come up to see. I'm thinking, okay, well, what's Aaron going to be wearing today? You know, and the other staff that I know, I'm thinking, oh, look, look at what so-and-so's wearing. So that was a lot of fun. And again, it's just one of those community things that our community is really supportive of and very proud of. And it's just great. And just want to thank the staff for all of their efforts throughout this past week, and particularly to Public Works again. So we had yet another gigantic skunk end up across the street from my house, at my neighbor's house in the street.
Oh, yes, I walked by it on
And thank you for picking it up. It was one of the biggest skunks I have ever seen. I mean, it was about the size of a small dog. So.
Mayor McGriff?
Yes.
I'm sorry, can I make 2 comments?
Oh, absolutely.
I want to compliment our Public Works staff, and I think it was Dana Webb in particular, but certainly John's staff. I sat in last week on a Metropolitan Policy Advisory Committee for the mayor, for MPAC, and the discussion was on the Regional Transportation Plan. And all of the communities in the metro area represented on that. 4 revisions were brought forward and were all approved. 1 was made by Clackamas County. The other 3 were made by the cities together, the cities of Lake Oswego, Happy Valley, and Oregon City. And I'll tell you, I was very proud at the work that our staff had done to have all of those communities in the room, and the only ones that took the time to make any suggestions was a group that included Oregon City. So thank you to Dana in particular, John, and you, John, and your staff. Whether or not they survive is another question, because it's got to go through, 2 or 3 more different groups.
I was wondering why you weren't going to report on the impact that you had to go through 4 meetings.
I'm still trying to figure out whether we do those reports at work sessions or at these meetings, so.
It's under communications, yes.
Okay, under communications. I feel like I need to loop back on the park. I'm sorry to do that. I am still in favor of honoring the master plan that was developed by our community. I am willing, out of respect for this body up here and these individuals up here, to continue the discussion. But to me, it's going to have to be a bigger discussion and re-involve the community. I don't want this commission to reverse a plan that was created through a public process.
Thank you.
If we need to have further discussion as this committee, as this commission, and if we decide that we need to go back out to the community as a whole, then we can do that. But presently, we have a master plan, and I'm prepared to go forward with it.
Thank you.
But I don't have a problem with having further discussion.
Okay, yes, Mr. Chief Davis, yes.
Before we adjourn, we did get 1 application for the youth opioid grant, and part of the process is a committee to score the grants. And so in a previous session, we were going to choose 2 commissioners to be part of that. So
Okay, I'm going to appoint myself and Commissioner Morrow to do that.
perfect.
Okay, we're adjourned.